Before we begin, take a moment to settle in. Let your shoulders drop. Take a breath. And if you enjoy strange, forgotten corners of history, the kind with equal parts horror, humor, and humility, consider subscribing. Like the hole we'll be talking about, it's not always pretty, but it's unforgettable. And tell me, where in the world are you listening from tonight? Drop it in the comments. I love to know how far the smell of medieval plumbing can travel. Now, let's go back, far back, to a time before toilet paper, before privacy, before anyone thought that building a bench over a pit might come with consequences. You wake up to the sound of dripping, not a peaceful kind. Not the rhythmic tap-tap of spring rain on slate. This drip echoes, hollow, dark, damp. It's somewhere beneath you. You're in a stone room, narrow, cold, and undecorated. The window is just a vertical slit in the wall, no glass, just open air and morning breath. You shift in the straw, your blanket itches, you itch. And that's when your stomach turns. Because the stew from last night, mostly onions, slightly gray meat, and water is knocking at the back gate. There's no chamber pot in sight. That luxury belongs to nobles. You're a page. Not a knight, not a squire, just another boy with a job no one wants. Which includes, today, cleaning the garderobe. You pull on your rough woolen tunic, stiff with yesterday's sweat, and something worse, and make your way down the narrow corridor. At the end is the door. Not a door like we think of them. More a wooden plank, loosely hinged, barely holding back the smell. You open it. Regret it instantly. The scent is old, heavy, saturated in the stones. It clings to the walls like a memory. And it doesn't get better. The toilet is a hole. More of a chute, really. Built right into the outer castle wall, it drops down way down to whatever unlucky ditch or moat sits at the base. Some castles are clever. They divert the waste with channels. Some let it fall directly into the water. Yours? It just piles. You sit, slowly, trying not to think about balance, because there's no seat. Just a smooth slab of stone with a gap wide enough to drop through and narrow enough to make you nervous. Some people have fallen. You've heard the stories. Servants who leaned too far, drunks, thieves thrown in as punishment. You keep very, very still. The draft is constant. The cold air whistles up through the chute, wrapping your legs in damp fingers. You imagine it carrying the voices of ghosts, or at least the groans of yesterday's meals. You look to the side. There's a rag. Stiff, used, maybe rinsed in the moat, maybe not. It's all you've got. You finish. You don't feel cleaner. You step outside and breathe, really breathe, for the first time since dawn. Behind you, the garderobe door creaks shut. You swear you hear it whisper, "You'll be back." You walk through the inner ward, past the blacksmith already hammering, past the chapel quiet, except for the tired prayer of the cook, and past a bucket, a wooden one, already half full with waste. It's from the lower servants' quarters. They don't have a chute. They have buckets. And they have you. You carry it slowly, arms out, breathing through your mouth. Across the field, to the trench. The sun's barely up and your boots are already soaked in mud, and worse. You think about how nobles do it. They have stone seats, some even lined with wood. Their waste drops directly into a hidden pit or down the castle wall, far from their dining hall, far from their noses. But even they aren't safe. You once heard of a king who died when enemies climbed up the toilet chute, poisoned by his own design. literally stabbed in the privy. No one is safe. You return to the castle, bucket empty, stomach still turning. You pass the kitchen boy. He nods. One of the moats is clogged again. You sigh. Because that means someone probably you will be sent to clear it. Again, you consider running. But where would you go? Even in the village, toilets are worse. People squat behind their homes. In fields. In alleyways. In pits dug in haste. Filled too fast. And barely covered. And once a week, maybe, the gong farmer comes. If he's sober, if he's not already passed out next to last week's pile. He makes a living barely shoveling excrement from holes to wagons. You once heard he makes more than a smith. You also heard his teeth fell out from the fumes. You sit on the castle steps, eyes to the gray sky. You wonder what it must be like to be clean, to have warm water, soap, a room with a window and a place to go that doesn't involve balancing over stone and hoping your aim is true. But you don't have that. You have the garderobe, the hole in the wall, and tomorrow you'll return. Because the onions in the stew never stop, and neither does the human body. It's not that you wanted this job. It's that someone had to do it. And this morning, as you stand in the courtyard with the cold wind pushing its way through your wool tunic, you realize something unfortunate. That someone is you. You're not alone. The other servants give you a wide berth, eyes averted. They know what today is. You've been avoiding it for 2 weeks, pretending not to hear when the master-at-arms barks about the build-up near the trench, pretending the stench outside the west wall isn't worsening by the day. But today? Today the smell reached the kitchen, and when the stew starts to taste like the moat, something must be done. You're handed a bucket, not empty, not clean, heavy with the weight of human life, its worst parts. You don't ask questions. You just breathe through your mouth and try not to think about how warm the handle is. The path to the trench is slick. You take slow, cautious steps. Because the last thing you want is to be the next poor soul to slip and earn yourself a bath no stream can cleanse. But halfway down the hill, your boot slides. Just slightly. Enough to remind you of how thin the edge is between shame and survival. At the trench, the scene is worse than expected. It's not just one pile. It's layers. Old waste, new waste, things that may once have been alive. It all blends together in a mound that steams in the early light. You add to it, carefully. Not for sanitation. That word hasn't been invented yet. For safety. Splashing isn't just unfortunate. It's a curse, a mark, a smell that will cling to your skin for days no matter how hard you scrub with sand and cold stream water. You dump the bucket and take a step back. Breathe. Again through your mouth. In the village, they have worse. Open pits behind homes. Shared privies with no doors. A line of people in the early morning, each waiting for their turn to balance over a hole that's more suggestion than structure. You've seen them, and smelled them. You wonder what it must be like to be clean, to be noble, to have an entire garderobe to yourself. But then you remember the draft, the rats, the fact that even lords still die from dysentery like the rest of us. You sigh. Pick up the bucket. Head back up the path. You're halfway to the keep when it happens. A voice. Oi! Careful there! You look up. Too late. A boy, no older than 10 barrels past, laughing, startles the goat near the wall, and the goat startles you. You jerk sideways. The bucket jerks with you. And before you can think, or pray, or beg the saints, it happens. The contents of the bucket, let's just call it the sum total of digestion, slosh over the rim, onto your hand, your tunic, your boots. You freeze. The smell rises like a spirit set loose from hell. The boy stops laughing. Everyone stops. Even the chickens seem to fall silent. You stand there, dripping, humiliated, half blinded by the realization that no bath, no prayer, no apology will undo what has just transpired. You don't scream. You don't cry. You just breathe. Through your mouth, now permanently trained. You walk to the trough. Step in. Let the water soak your boots, your feet, your shame. You pour a ladle over your head. It's freezing. It helps. A little. Later, you find a dry tunic. Not cleaner. Just drier. You scrub your hands with ash and a worn brush. And when the steward asks you if the trench is cleared, you nod. He doesn't thank you. No one thanks the one who carries the bucket. That evening, the cook tosses you an extra piece of bread. Silent gratitude. You take it. Eat it. Think about nothing. You lie in your straw pallet that night, staring at the beams overhead, listening to the wind howl outside. And you wonder not for the first time why no one has invented something better, why the waste of 100 people is allowed to pile beneath the castle like a curse waiting to rise. You wonder how many diseases were born down there, how many ghosts. In the distance, the gong farmer sings. His cart rattles on wooden wheels, hauling the night's burden out toward the forest where even the wolves won't go. They say he sleeps in his own shed, far from the village. They say his skin has changed color. You don't doubt it. You dream of buckets that never spill, of hot baths, of scented oils, of rooms with real doors and servants with gloves. But when you wake, the bucket is still real, and so is the job. You didn't dodge it. No one ever does. Because in this time, in this place, no one escapes the filth. You can only carry it, and pray the wind is blowing the other way. There's a basket in the corner of the garderobe. You've seen it every time, never questioned it. Just a pile of cloth, rough and discolored, damp with time and something else. You always assumed it wasn't for you. But now, after the bucket, after the splash, after your dignity took a long, unwanted bath, you find yourself staring at it with new eyes. Because today, there is no moss, no snow, no handful of hay. Today, the rag is your only option. It's not clean. You know that. You know because it smells of mildew and something faintly metallic. It's not white, not anymore. Somewhere between brown and green, with a memory of blue threads that might have once meant royalty. But it's what's available. And in this time, that word means more than clean, more than safe. It means you're lucky. Even if you don't feel it, you hold it between two fingers. Careful, slow. You've heard stories. Rags passed down, shared between family, between neighbors. Some wiped with one side, folded, and passed along. Some rinsed in water that barely moved. Some never rinsed at all. You don't know the origin of this one, and maybe that's better. You glance at the chute. The hole, still there, still waiting. You lower yourself again. The stone is colder today, or maybe you're just noticing it more. You brace. Do your business. And then, the rag. There's no graceful way to describe it. It's like asking your hand to forget it's a hand, to become something else, to do a task it never wanted and then pretend it never happened. But you use it. Because you must. Because the alternative is worse. You fold it, set it back in the basket. Yes, back, because the rag isn't thrown away. It's not burned. It's reused, again and again, until it falls apart. Until someone not you is tasked with replacing it. And maybe even then, they'll cut the scraps into smaller pieces and put them in the laundry for another round. The cycle is eternal. Later, in the kitchens, you ask the cook, how often do they change the rags? He laughs. When they rot, you wait for a real answer. It doesn't come. Instead, he hands you a bowl. Turnip soup. Thick. Gray. Smells faintly of what you hope is garlic. You eat. You try not to think about hands and cloth and moisture and memory, but the rag stays in your mind. That night, as the fire burns low, the woman who tends the laundry sits beside you. She doesn't look at you, just says, used to be soft linen. You blink. What? The rags. Once. A long time ago. Soft. New. People cared. What changed? She shrugs. Too many mouths. Not enough hands. Cloth wears down faster than we can spin it. You nod. Then pause. Do you wash them? She looks at you. Her eyes are tired. Not angry. Not sad. Just tired. Sometimes, in the village, they don't have rags. They use whatever is at hand. Straw. Leaves. Pieces of broken pottery, smooth on one side, sharp on the other. You've seen the cuts, heard the complaints, but they don't stop, because when you've got nothing, pain becomes normal. So does the smell. In the monastery, you heard, they use sponges attached to sticks, dipped in vinegar between uses. Elegant, almost. But then again, monks don't live like you. They don't carry buckets, or dig trenches, or wipe with someone else's past. You go to sleep with that thought, that someone else used it. Maybe someone you know. Maybe someone you fed bread to just this morning. And maybe that's the real horror of it all. Not the smell, not the feel, but the closeness, the shared intimacy of survival. In the morning, the rag is gone, replaced with another, barely better, but different. You wonder if the old one was cleaned, or just folded and placed elsewhere, maybe under your blanket. You shake the thought from your head, but it lingers, like the smell. At breakfast, the steward makes an announcement. Storm's coming. Guard the garderobes. Flooding risk is high. You groan, because you know what that means. Overflow. Spillage. The chute vomiting back into the castle walls. You've seen it once before. The flood ran through the pantry. They had to burn the floorboards. You still don't eat dried apples. You spend the day stacking sandbags. Not that they're called that. More like whatever sacks we can find, filled with dirt and desperation. You line the base of the garderobe. One slip, one wrong splash, and it's weeks of illness. Last time, the cook's boy died. Cholera, they whispered. Though no one knew the word, they just blamed the wind. That night, you kneel before your straw mat and whisper something to the ceiling. Not a prayer. Not really. Just a hope. That the rag tomorrow is drier. That the wind shifts. That no one knocks over the bucket. And that the world, for once, smells of something other than defeat. You think it's private. That little wooden room off the corridor. Built halfway into the castle wall, just wide enough to stand, just tall enough to duck. You think it's yours, if only for a moment. But in this place, nothing is ever truly private. Especially not the act of being human. This morning, Like every morning, you feel it first as pressure. Not pain, not yet. Just a nudge, the body's gentle reminder that its needs cannot be ignored forever. You wait too long, because you always wait too long, because it's always a gamble. The garderobe is 20 paces from your room, more if you count the stairs, and the creaky boards, and the fact that the Lord's cousin sleeps in the chamber above and complains if anyone so much as breathes past midnight. But the feeling grows, and now it's urgent. You throw on your cloak, grab a rag, just in case, and hurry. The corridor is dark. The torch near the stairwell has burned out, or maybe been stolen. Either way, you move by memory. Hand on stone, bare feet cold on colder flagstone. The air smells of ash and old sweat. Familiar. Reassuring in its own miserable way. You reach the door. Wood. Old. Swollen from damp and too many hands. It groans as it opens, loud enough to wake a saint. Inside, it's black. But you know the shape of the room by heart. Step in. Turn. Sit. And then a sound. Not from you. From the corridor. You freeze. Because the door didn't latch. You forgot. Again. There's no lock. Just a wooden bolt you slide from the inside. You meant to. You always mean to. But the urgency. The sound again. Soft steps. A shuffle. Not hurried. Not confident. Just present. Too present. You stop everything. Muscles tense. Breath held. You wait. And then, you in there? It's the stable boy. Voice cracked. Still new to this place. Too young to be this tired. You clear your throat. Occupied. Oh. A pause. Then, didn't know. You wait for him to walk away. He doesn't. Instead, the sound of shifting weight. A scuff. A sniff. You can picture him standing there, fidgeting, half embarrassed, half too numb to care. You mind if I wait? You blink. Wait? It's cold and dark. And if I go back out there, the dogs might think I'm food again. You sigh. Not because he's wrong, but because you get it. The dogs are mean and hungry, and you once saw them chew through a ham hock like it was bread crust. You sigh again. Wait quiet then. And so he does. At least for a bit. Then comes the cough. Then a shuffle. Then, smells worse than yesterday. You say nothing, because he's right. And because commentating on the smell of a medieval toilet is like reviewing a battlefield for noise levels. Pointless. When you're finished, you shuffle back to standing. Fumble for the rag. Find it. Cold, damp, familiar. You do what must be done. Then open the door. He stands just to the side, eyes down, like you're a priest leaving a confessional. You nod once. He doesn't look at you, just slips inside. You hear the door creak closed. This time, the bolt slides. A sharp click that feels like a small victory. For him. For privacy. For dignity, what little of it remains. You walk back to your chamber slower. Because now, the urgency is gone, and all that's left is the shame. Not of being seen, of being known, that someone else now has a piece of your humanity, and you didn't get to choose which one. Later that day, a storm hits. Wind slaps the stone walls. Rain hammers the roof. And somewhere deep in the structure, you hear water moving where it shouldn't. A servant runs through the corridor shouting, "Garderobe's leaking! Chamber pot overflowed!" You close your eyes, because you know what that means. Not again. By midday, it's a full crisis. The waste chute is backed up. Pressure has built. The bolt holding the outer hatch snapped under weight and wind, and the contents of the chute have sprayed back, not down. Up. Into the wall. Through the cracks. Into the servants' pantry. It takes 3 hours to shovel it out. 4 more to burn the soiled linens. And days to forget the smell. That night, as you sit by the hearth, feet aching, hands raw, the steward says, "We need a better system." You laugh. Not because it's funny, because it's late, and there is no better system. Not yet. Not here. Just you. The rag. The hole. And the door you'll remember to bolt next time. You always thought the moat was for protection. That wide, murky trench encircling the castle like a necklace of mud and frogs. Surely it kept out the invaders, the wolves, the desperate. That's what the old men say, anyway. No man with a sword can cross it without swimming in his armor. The steward told you once, puffed up like a toad in his wool robe. What he didn't mention, the moat is also where the waste goes. Your waste. The servant's waste. The noble's waste. The animal's waste. And it doesn't go anywhere else. It just stays. In spring, the smell rises first. Thick, wet, unignorable. Like a wet blanket that's been used to mop an old latrine. You notice it before the flowers bloom, before the sun warms the grass, before the birds return. The smell returns first. It slithers through the windows, creeps under doors, soaks into your tunic like it belongs there. It's not just unpleasant. It's historical. Today, you're assigned a new task. You've cleaned garderobes. You've carried buckets. You've stood in places no one should ever stand. But this is new. Dredging the moat, the steward says. Like it's the most natural thing in the world. Just the surface. Scrape off the crust. Crust. Let that word settle. The moat has a crust. You're handed a long rake. Not a tool of precision. Not a tool of honor. A flat board nailed to a crooked stick. You join the others near the north wall, where the wind doesn't blow a problem, not a blessing. Here, the smell gathers like a curse. Old food. Rotten hay. Dung. Worse than dung, unnameable things. You suppress the urge to gag. You're not alone. The boy beside you is already pale. The woman next to him mutters a prayer. You all lean forward and begin scraping. It resists. The surface of the moat isn't water. It's memory. A gelatinous blend of months, maybe years of runoff, rot, refuse, and secrets. You push. It fights back. The rake catches on something soft. Then something hard. Then something that makes a pop you don't want to identify. You push again. A sheet of filth rolls over like a creature in its sleep. The smell hits you like a hand. You fall to one knee. Dry heave. Swallow it down. There's no glory here. You work for hours. Scrape, pull, dump. There's a pit beside the moat, just a shallow depression dug last year. That's where you pile the sludge. It doesn't help, just moves the problem 10 feet away. But the steward seems satisfied. He walks the edge, nodding like a general surveying a battlefield. "Keep it up," he says. "We're expecting guests next week." Guests? As if the smell will take a holiday. You take a break at noon. The cook gives you a crust of bread and a wedge of cheese too hard to chew. You dip it in water to soften it. The water tastes like moat. You eat anyway. A bird lands near the edge of the trench. It hops once, twice, then pecks at something shiny. A mistake. Its foot slips. Wings flail. It tumbles into the sludge. You watch it disappear. Gone in seconds. No splash. No noise. Just gone. You turn away. And don't speak for the rest of the day. That night, you scrub your hands raw. Ash, sand, cold water. Nothing works. The smell lingers beneath your nails, in your hair, in the folds of your skin. You lie in bed, eyes open, listening to the others breathe, wondering how many particles of today are now in your lungs. In the morning, it rains. A blessing, at first, until you realize what rain does. It loosens the crust, lifts the surface, stirs the depths. By midday, the moat is bubbling. Not with life, with fermentation, a witch's brew of bacteria and betrayal. You're told to stay back, but the smell doesn't respect orders. It marches in through every crack, every stone, every pore. You see the lady of the keep press a scented cloth to her nose, as if lilac oil can fight centuries of human waste. You smile. It's not funny, but it's all you have. The next week, the guests arrive. 2 minor lords. 1 bishop. 3 knights. They enter the great hall with pomp and polished boots. They do not ask about the smell. They do not speak of the bubbling moat. They sip wine, compliment the bread, and avoid the windows. Everyone pretends. That's the medieval way. You are assigned to serve the bishop. He asks for warm water to wash his hands. You bring it. He dips his fingers, sniffs, frowns. This water has a memory. You nod, say nothing, because he's not wrong. Everything here has a memory, especially the moat. It starts with a whisper in your gut. You try to ignore it. After all, dinner was hours ago, a bowl of turnip mash, barely warm, served with a spoon you had to lick clean from the last meal. You shouldn't even have enough in you to cause trouble. But your body has other plans. It's the middle of the night. The castle is asleep, or trying to be. Wind presses against the shutters. The fire has died down to coals. The room is filled with the slow, wheezy breath of too many people crowded into too little space. You're buried beneath a rough blanket, knees tucked to chest, trying to stay warm. But your insides are waking up, and they are angry. At first, you shift, adjust, try to bargain. You whisper promises to the universe. Just let me sleep, just until morning. I'll skip breakfast. I'll scrub the floors. Just not now. But the universe is deaf tonight. Or maybe it's just cruel. The pressure builds, sharp, hot, relentless. You break. You rise. Your feet hit cold stone. A rat skitters nearby. Your breath shows in the air. You glance around the room. Everyone is still asleep. Except you. And the problem, the garderobe is at the end of the corridor. You know the path. You've walked it dozens of times. But not at night. Not in this silence. Not with this urgency. You tiptoe past the sleeping forms. Step over the old man who snores like a forge bellows. Avoid the creaky floorboard near the fireplace. Hold your breath as you open the door to the hallway. It groans. Of course it groans. You flinch. Pause. Nothing. No movement. You exhale slowly and begin the walk. The corridor is colder than your room. The wind finds its way through cracks in the stone. The torch near the stairs flickers, barely lit. You consider grabbing it, then think better. You need both hands free. You quicken your pace. Each step feels longer than the last, because the pressure is no longer patient. It pounds against you like a drumbeat. Your body wants out. You reach the garderobe. Place your hand on the wooden bolt. Slide it open. The smell hits you immediately. Fetid, old, familiar, like the breath of something dead but still whispering. But there's no time to hesitate. You enter, turn, sit, and then relief. Agonizing, shuddering, pure. You close your eyes. Not to enjoy it, that would be impossible, but to block out the rest of your senses. The cold seat, the draft up your legs, the drip, drip, drip from somewhere below. You don't want to know where it lands. You never do. When it's over, you reach for the rag. It's not where you thought it would be. You feel around. Your fingers find something damp. Not the rag. Something else. A dead mouse? You recoil. Gag. Your stomach clenches. Threatens to start round 2. You steady yourself. Breathe. And finally find the rag in the shadows. Still damp. Still cold. Still the worst part of your day. You use it anyway. Because what choice do you have? You stand. Your legs ache from the squat. Your nose burns. You open the door, step out, and immediately freeze. Someone is standing in the corridor. A figure. Tall. Still. Too still. You squint. It moves. A guard. He says nothing, just eyes you with mild disinterest. You're out late. You nod. Couldn't hold it. He shrugs. Next time, bring a torch. You step wrong, you'll end up down the chute. He walks away. You don't move for a long time. You just breathe and try to forget the smell. Back in your bed, the blanket feels rougher, the room colder, the snores louder, and the pressure in your gut gone. But in its place, a question. How many more nights like this? How many more near misses? How many more rags? And no matter how you try, you don't sleep. Not really. Not well. Because there are some nights you survive, and some you remember. They call it the Lord's privy, but the Lord barely uses it. He prefers the commode in his chamber, a bucket hidden behind a tapestry, emptied by the footman twice a day or not, depending on how much wine has been consumed the night before. The real users? Servants, scribes, cooks when they can sneak in, and you, not by right, but by opportunity. This morning, you try to get there early. The sun is barely above the horizon. The castle is still groggy. Soft footfalls. Clatter from the kitchen. The kind of quiet that only lasts 5 minutes in a place where 100 people pretend they aren't all living on top of one another. You take your chance. Slip away before the others stir. You walk quickly, but not too quickly. Because running means something's wrong. And if something's wrong, someone will stop you and ask questions. And then you'll lose your spot. The Lord's privy sits halfway up the tower. A little alcove. Stone walls. Wooden seat. An actual door. With a bolt. And miracle of miracles, a small window for light and air. You've only been in it once before. 3 months ago. You remember the smell. Still terrible. But not as terrible. Like a candle burning in a tomb. At least the tomb tried. You turn the corner and stop because someone's already there. It's Martin. You hate Martin. Everyone hates Martin. He's a page, technically noble, but barely. His father owns half a hill and a goat. He walks like he owns the keep, smiles like he's done nothing wrong, which, of course, he has. Often, he leans against the wall, arms crossed. You here for the throne? You say nothing. He grins. Guess you're waiting then. You nod, because arguing won't help, and because if you say something clever, he might tell the steward, and then you'll be scrubbing the trench again. You step back, lean against the opposite wall, and wait. Time moves differently in a corridor. 5 minutes feels like 20. 20 feels like punishment. You hear sounds from inside the privy. Not Martin. The person before him. A groan. A splash. Something that sounds like regret. Martin whistles. Soft. Off-key. Deliberate. You want to slap him. You don't. The door creaks open. An old man stumbles out. The falconer. Eyes watery. Hands shaking. He doesn't speak. Just shuffles away. Martin enters. Bolts the door. You hear it click, and then silence. You sit, because standing feels like defeat. The stone is cold. Always is. You shift, adjusting your tunic to keep from sticking. A mouse runs by. Bold little thing. You don't flinch, because the mouse isn't the worst thing in this hallway. Minutes pass. Too many. Martin is taking his time. Because of course he is. Because he knows you're waiting. Because in this world, power is rationed in slivers. And right now, he holds yours. You consider knocking, but don't. You tried that once. Last year, the steward's cousin was inside. You tapped gently, politely. And for the next week, you were assigned to poultry duty, plucking geese until your fingers bled. Never again. The door finally creaks open. Martin exits, whistling. You don't meet his eyes. He doesn't expect you to. He just walks past. Victorious. Like he conquered a kingdom. You enter. The smell hits first. A sour mix of vinegar, old wood, and this morning's meal. But it's still better. Better than the trench. Better than the courtyard. Better than the bucket. You close the door. Slide the bolt. That sweet, holy sound. Click. Alone. You sit. Exhale. For a moment, just a moment, you pretend this is yours. That the stone is warm. That the air is fresh. That no one is waiting outside, resenting your existence. You imagine scented oils. Clean cloth. Soft light. It doesn't help, but it's something. When you're done, you look around. The rag is there, hung on a nail, dry, folded, almost clean. You hesitate. Use it anyway, because that's life. Here, now, you clean yourself with what someone else used, and then fold it again for the next person. You unlock the bolt. Step outside. No one's waiting. A small mercy. You walk back to the kitchen, lighter. Not joyful, but lighter. You get back to work. Bread needs kneading. Fire needs tending. Life continues. But in the back of your mind, the thought lingers. You don't own that privy. You don't own anything here. Not your time. Not your tools. Not your body. You borrow. You wait. You endure. And if you're lucky, no one notices you. You weren't supposed to be at the feast. That's the first thing. Servants don't eat with lords. Pages don't sit with knights. And stable hands certainly don't get a place near the roast. But tonight, something changed. Not fortune, not favor, just logistics. The Lord's daughter is getting married. A minor noble from 2 counties away. Tall, thin, looks like someone tried to sculpt a man out of chalk and forgot the warmth. He arrives with his retinue, 5 wagons deep. They unload crates of wine, wheels of cheese, dried fruits, salted meats. The steward panics. There's not enough help. So they send for everyone. Even you. You're not serving. Not tonight. You're cleaning, refilling, hauling plates so wide they bend your wrists. But between runs, you're allowed to nibble. Bread crust. A fig. Even miracle of miracles. A slice of cured venison. You chew slowly, carefully, like you're afraid it'll vanish before you swallow. The food is rich. Too rich. Seasoned with things you've only smelled in the noble garden. Clove, cinnamon, even a hint of orange peel. It sits heavy. Your stomach used to gruel dried beans, and boiled leeks doesn't know what to do with flavor. It revolts. Quietly at first. Then, loudly, painfully, you try to push through. It's not the first time you've felt this. Sometimes after the cook scraps a bone into your bowl, or when someone accidentally leaves a goose wing behind. But this is different. This is decadence, and your body isn't built for it. By the 4th course, you're sweating. By the 5th, you're pale. By the 6th, you've excused yourself. Down the corridor, past the tapestries, into the servants' hall, out into the cold night. The air is sharp. It helps slightly. You breathe deep. Regret? You make your way toward the south garderobe. Not the nice one. The one near the kitchens. Unlit. Unclean. Unloved. But it's closer. And right now, distance is danger. You make it. Barely. You don't remember sitting, just being. There. In place. Hunched over. Gripping the stone walls like they might float away if you let go. What happens next isn't elegant or discreet. It's loud, messy, violent, and profoundly human. When it's over, you feel hollow, like someone scooped you out with a wooden spoon. You breathe. Once. Twice. You reach for the rag. It's not there. Of course it's not. You look around. Nothing. Just spider webs and the faint outline of a rat's tail disappearing into the shadows. You curse. Silently. Then reach for your undershirt. You tear a strip. Use it. Don't think about it. Just do it. You'll be cold later. Right now, you need to feel clean. Or something close to it. You walk back slowly. Each step aches. Each breeze cuts through your now thinner tunic. Your skin itches with sweat and shame. You reach the great hall just as the 7th course is being served. Pies shaped like birds. Birds shaped like pie. Someone laughs. Someone drops a goblet. You return to your corner and pretend nothing happened. The cook eyes you, raises an eyebrow. You okay? You nod. Just the stew. She smirks. That wasn't stew. You nod again. Lie. Because there's no dignity in the truth. Not here. Not tonight. Later, as the guests toast and the minstrels play, You sneak back to the kitchens. A pot of warm water steams on the hearth. You dip a cloth, wipe your hands, your neck, the back of your legs. You don't scrub, just remove enough of the day to sleep. You sit by the fire, alone, and think. Feasts aren't made for people like me. And you're right. They're made for show, for display, for wealth to wear itself like a crown and pretend the world isn't made of dirt and disease. You saw what went into those dishes. The undercooked boar. The fish left too long in the sun. The mushrooms no one could name. It's a miracle anyone leaves alive. You were just unlucky. Or maybe lucky. Depending on your definition. At least you made it to the garderobe. At least you're not the page vomiting behind the stables. Or the knight whose armor had to be unstrapped mid-toast. You sip from a cup of boiled water. Lukewarm. Plain. Safe. You close your eyes. And think of porridge. They arrive just after sunrise. 3 of them. Dressed in fabrics too clean for travel. Boots too soft for real roads. Voices too loud for a place with stone walls and hungover servants. You hear them before you see them. Is this the keep? Smaller than I imagined. Smells like wet wool and regret. You're behind the stables, dumping slop from last night's stew into the trench behind the chicken yard. The smell doesn't bother you. You're used to it. You're part of it. The guests are merchants. Not nobility, but not peasants either. Rich enough to wear rings. Poor enough to polish them themselves. They speak in a mix of French and something else, maybe Flemish, but loud enough that it doesn't matter what language they're using. The message is clear. We're better than this. And by this, they mean everything. You're assigned to carry their bags. 3 leather satchels. A box with iron clasps. A sack that leaks something sticky and sweet. The first one sneers as he hands it over. Careful. That's beeswax imported from Sicily, more valuable than your teeth. You nod, not because you agree, but because it's easier than responding with your mouth full of resentment. You haul their things up to the guest quarters. Top of the East Tower. Of course it's the top. Of course it's the one with the spiral stairs that lean slightly, like they've been drinking for 2 centuries straight. Each step is an argument between your knees and gravity. The sack leaks. Again. The beeswax drips onto your boot. You don't even bother wiping it off. It'll blend in with the rest. Inside the chamber, the walls are hung with faded tapestries. Hunting scenes. Mythical beasts. Men with 2 perfect beards holding goblets the size of your head. The guests laugh. They still hang these old things? Probably haven't been cleaned since the plague. Which one? You place the bags gently. Step back. Wait. One of them tosses you a coin. It lands at your feet. You don't move. Not until they turn away. Then you pocket it. Not for the value. For the victory. By midday, the guests are bored. That's what they say, at least. No books, no women, no music worth hearing. They demand wine. You fetch it. They demand food. You bring it. They complain anyway. You overhear them at supper. You're serving trenchers, slabs of day-old bread used as plates, each one topped with meat, roots, and a spoonful of what might once have been peas. One guest pokes his meal with a dagger. Is this goose or dog? Another snorts. Does it matter? It's dead and gray either way. They laugh. You pour their wine. One of them slaps your hand. Not hard, but enough to send the pitcher tilting. A splash hits the table, and the merchant grins. Careful, rat. That's the good stuff. You clean it with your sleeve. Say nothing, because that's safer. Later that night, you're in the corridor. The fire's low. The wind howls through the arrow slits, and you hear something strange. Giggling, then a splash. Then, what in God's name? You round the corner and see it. One of the guests, squatting in the corner. Not the garderobe, not the privy, the floor. He looks up, sees you, grins. Couldn't find your fancy hole. You freeze. Not in shock, in calculation, because this isn't your mess, but you'll be cleaning it. In the morning, the steward is furious, red-faced, spitting, cursing in Latin. The guest is still drunk. Says it was a dare. Says he was testing the acoustics. Says it's your fault for not showing him the proper facilities. You nod. Take the blame. Because arguing means attention, and attention means punishment. You scrub the floor, the stone, the baseboards. You light a tallow candle to mask the scent. It doesn't help. Nothing helps. By midday, the guests are preparing to leave. They bark orders. Demand salt for the road, dried meat, a jug of something they won't drink. You bring it all. Load the cart. Smile. They don't notice. They're too busy laughing about something the cook said, or didn't say. It doesn't matter. As the cart rolls out, one of them tosses another coin. This one misses, clatters against the stones. You don't pick it up. You just watch them disappear. Dust rising behind their wheels. Smoke without fire. Noise without meaning. Back in the hall, someone asks, "Will they return?" You shake your head. Not because you know, but because you hope. They'll forget you. You'll never forget them. Not their names. Not their faces. Just the mess. And the silence afterward. It's late spring. The kind of season that tricks you. Warm at noon. Cold at dawn. Freezing just before the sun rises, when you least expect it. And that's when you feel it. The breeze. Not a gust. Not a storm. Just a soft, uninvited finger of air sliding through a crack in the stone. It touches your back as you squat in the garderobe. And suddenly, you're awake in a way you weren't before. Not alert. Just aware. You shift forward on the wooden seat. It creaks beneath you. You know this sound. You know this seat. It's the same one you use every day. The one near the southern wall. Not the fancy one. Not the private one. The open-faced, shared by all sort of latrine, carved into the castle's exterior wall, hanging like a wooden mouth above a pit that goes too deep and not deep enough. It should be familiar, comforting even in its own awful way. But today, it feels different. Because the breeze isn't just cold. It's moving, purposeful, curious, like something beneath you is breathing. You look down. There's a slit in the wood. You can't see far, but you hear things. Drips, sloshes, something shifting. Maybe it's just the wind. Maybe it's not. You don't stay long enough to find out. You finish quickly. Use the rag. Don't check where it's been. Just do what needs doing. And bolt. Back in the corridor, the air is still. No wind. No draft. Only in the garderobe. Only when you sit. Only when you're vulnerable. You shake your head. Tell yourself, it's nothing. Tell yourself you imagined it. You don't believe it. Later that day, you mention it to one of the older servants. Bran. He's been here longer than the rats. Longer than the steward, maybe. He's seen things, but he doesn't talk much. You catch him in the pantry, cleaning onions with a knife that looks older than the castle. You say, "There's wind in the latrine." He doesn't look up, just keeps peeling. There's always wind. This one moves. A pause. Then, "Don't sit too long." That's all. Nothing else. No smile. No warning. Just that. And suddenly, the breeze feels colder. That night, you dream. Not of storms, not of falling, but of doors. Hundreds of them, all ajar, all leading down, and behind each one, a whisper, too soft to understand, too loud to ignore. You wake up sweating, and need to go. Of course you do. You take a torch. You learn from last time. The corridor is silent. The walls damp. You reach the garderobe, and pause. The door is open. It shouldn't be. You didn't leave it that way. No one does. You step inside, raise the torch, look down. There's movement. Not fast, not sharp, just there. A slow ripple in the darkness beneath the seat. Something shifting, swelling, retreating. You lean closer. A mistake. The breeze rises to meet you, right in the face. And this time you smell it. It's not just waste, not just rot. There's something else. Earth, stone, old water, like the breath of a cave. A place that hasn't seen sunlight since before names. You drop the torch. Catch it before it falls too far. Step back. Fast. The breeze follows. Up. Through the hole. Around your legs. Playful. Like a child hiding behind a curtain. You don't wait. You leave. Walk quickly. Don't run. Because running means fear. And fear invites company. In the kitchen, the fire's still warm. You sit near it, stare at the embers. Try to forget. Bran walks in, stops, looks at you. You don't speak. Neither does he, but he nods. Once, like someone who's heard the whisper too. The next morning, the stoneworkers are summoned. A draft problem, the steward says. They inspect the garderobe, knock on the wood, peer down the chute, shrug. It's waste air, one says. Natural venting. Nothing to worry about. They seal the cracks anyway. Patch the floor. Reinforce the seat. Add iron nails, as if metal can stop whatever lives in the deep. You watch them work. Say nothing. Because if you speak, it becomes real. That night, you use a bucket. You empty it yourself, behind the stables, quietly. No one asks why. No one wants to know. You avoid the garderobe for 3 days. And when you finally return, you don't sit. You hover. You listen. And you leave the door open. It starts with a sound, a faint one. At first, you think it's a rat, maybe 2, scratching in the pantry again. Nothing worth thinking about. But then you hear it again, not scratching, not skittering. Something else, like wood creaking under weight that isn't there, like breath caught between stones. And it's coming from the garderobe. You tell yourself it's the wind. You always do. Because admitting otherwise invites things you don't want to name. Things that live between mortar and myth. But deep down, you know, this isn't wind. The castle is quiet tonight. Quieter than usual. As if the walls themselves are listening. Even the fire in the great hall seems hesitant, crackling softly, barely warming the air. You sit near it, pretending to stitch a torn tunic. Your fingers move. Your mind doesn't, because it's back. That noise, a long, low groan, like something waking up beneath the floor. You set down the tunic, stand, move toward the corridor. The air is colder there. Always is. You think it's just the stones. But tonight it feels personal, like the cold is watching you. You reach the garderobe. It looks the same. Rough wooden door, iron latch, dark beyond. You press your ear to the frame. Hold your breath. Listen, and there it is. Scrape, drag, pause, like something circling beneath the seat, or maybe waiting. You consider leaving, just walking away. Let it be someone else's problem. Let it be Bran's, or the steward's, or the night guard who sleeps more than he watches. But you don't, because deep down you're curious. You lift the latch. Slow. It squeals, louder than it should. You wince. Wait. Nothing moves. You push the door open. Darkness. Thick. Still. Heavy. You step inside. The smell is the same. Rot. Damp wood. Old waste. But beneath that, something else. Sweet. Sharp. Like herbs rotting in a cellar. You hold the torch out. Edge closer to the seat. Peer down. Nothing. Just black. You lean further, and then a sound. Right in your ear. Not behind. Not below. Beside. A breath. Not yours. You turn. Fast. Nothing there. You stumble back. Hit the wall. Drop the torch. It rolls. The flame flickers. Catches again. You grab it. Run. You don't tell anyone. Because what would you say? That the toilet whispered? That the dark has lungs? That something breathes behind the stone? No one would believe you. They'd laugh. Or worse, they'd send you back to prove it. You spend the night near the kitchen fire, wrapped in a blanket, eyes wide, ears sharper than ever. Every creak is a footstep, every gust a whisper, every pop of the coals a voice you almost understand. Bran finds you at dawn. He looks at your face, says nothing, hands you a cup of hot water, sits. You sip. He finally speaks. You heard it. You nod. It's real. He nods. Sips his own cup. It's old. What is it? He shrugs. Not our problem. Until it is. And that's the end of the conversation. The next day, a scribe disappears. Not a good one. Young. New. Forgettable. No one notices for a few hours. Then someone finds his sandals by the garderobe. That's all. No blood. No struggle. Just sandals. And a breeze that now smells like parchment. The steward locks the door, boards it up, says it's collapsing, says it's unsafe, tells everyone to use the trench again. You say nothing, because what else is there to say? You hold it longer now. Wait for morning. Use the bucket. Empty it at dusk. The others complain. But you know better. Because the noise, it's still there. And it's louder. Closer. Sometimes you hear it in your sleep. Sometimes you don't. Those are the worst nights. Because silence, that's when it's really listening. It's just a trench. That's what they tell you. What they whisper when you complain. what they mutter when the wind shifts. It's just a trench, a place to pour the filth, to forget what came out of you, to pretend you're cleaner than you are. But you know better now, because you've seen what waits in the dark. And the trench? It sees you too. The board went up 2 days ago. The garderobe locked. Nailed shut. Unsafe, the steward said. Collapsed, he claimed. But you saw the fear in his eyes. The kind that doesn't come from falling stones. You didn't argue. You didn't want to. You just turned and walked to the back wall, where the trench lives. It runs behind the castle like a forgotten vein, too wide to jump, too shallow to drown. A channel dug long ago by hands now dust, meant to carry waste out of sight, out of mind, and for the most part, it does, until it rains. Because when it rains, the trench doesn't flow. It swells, it churns, it breathes. The waste bubbles. The surface writhes, like it's trying to pull itself back inside, like it's angry it was ever let go. You learn to time it. Wait until mid-afternoon, after the kitchen rush, before the chamber pots are dumped. The stench is strongest then, so strong even the flies hold their breath. But the trench is quiet, still, sleeping. You hope. You go out with your bucket. You crouch beside the edge. You pour, quickly, carefully, and you never ever look too long, because you know what lives down there, or worse, what doesn't. Some say it's just waste, and yes, mostly it is, but there's also bones, tiny ones, rats, they say, or birds. But you've never seen birds with teeth that small, or skulls shaped like twisted coins. You once saw something blink. Only once. But once is enough. The trench is old. Older than the stones. Older than the walls. Some say the castle was built around it, because people needed a place to forget themselves. Some say it leads to the river. You don't believe that, because rivers don't pull, and the trench pulls. Last week, a goose went missing, stumbled too close to the edge, squawked once, then gone. No feathers, no splash, no sound, just gone. The cook called it bad luck. You called it something else. You see Bran again near the trench. He's dumping ashes from the fire. The only thing that smells worse than the trench. You nod to him. He nods back. Nothing else. Because when you're near the trench, you don't waste words. Words echo, and sometimes something echoes back. That night, it rains. Hard. The sky cracks open. Water pours like judgment. The trench comes alive. You hear it from your cot. A low gurgle, a hiss, a thirst. Someone groans in the dark, not in pain, in need, and you pray they don't rise. Don't walk. Don't sleepwalk to the trench, and you pull the blanket tighter, cover your ears, wait for dawn. In the morning, one of the boys is missing. Young, thin, quiet. They say he ran off. You know better. He was afraid to use the bucket. He said he'd rather face the cold than the smell. So he went outside and never came back. They find his shoes. One of them, split down the side. Toes still inside. The steward says wolves. Everyone nods. No one believes it. No blood. No prints. Just the shoe. And the trench. And the silence. You dump your bucket in the corner now, behind the stable, near the compost. It's against the rules. But rules don't matter when things start eating the rule makers. Bran nods in approval. The others say nothing. Everyone smells worse now, because no one wants to go to the trench. But eventually, you must, because there's only so many corners, only so many shadows. And the trench? It waits, patient, hungry, curious. When you approach it now, it smells sweeter. Not better, just different. Like something rotting, trying to smell alive. Like fruit left in the sun for too long. You pour quickly. Step back faster. Don't watch. Don't breathe too deep. And never, ever talk near it. Because the trench listens, and it remembers your voice. Someone suggests sealing it. You all laugh, nervously, because sealing the trench is like sealing your mouth. It might stop the noise, but it won't stop what's behind it. One of the guards suggests burning it. Bran shakes his head. You burn a mouth, it just opens wider. No one argues, because no one wants to see what that looks like. At night, you start dreaming in circles. Endless ones. Tunnels of stone and bone and water and waste. You walk them forever, looking for the sky. There is no sky, only a hole above you. Too high to reach, too narrow to escape. And below, something is moving. You wake soaked in sweat and still need to go. You stare at your bucket, at the door, at the trench in your mind. You hold it in. You always do. Until you can't. You didn't mean for anyone to see. No one does. Not when it happens. Not when it slips. But shame isn't polite. It doesn't wait for privacy. It doesn't knock. It just arrives. Loud. Wet. Unforgiving. It started with a cough. Just one. Harsh. From deep in your chest. The kind that rattles your ribs and leaves a bitter taste on your tongue. You thought it was dust. Or the hay. Or the smoke from the cook fire. But by morning, you knew better. Because it wasn't just your throat. It was your gut. And it wasn't just rumbling. It was warning. You try to wait. To hold it in. To push through like you always do. There's work to be done, hay to move, bread to haul, pots to scrub. But your stomach has other plans. You double over behind the barracks. Hands on your knees. Eyes blurred. And you feel it. That awful, sickening shift. The betrayal of your own body. You run. Not to the trench. Not to the bucket. You don't even know where. You just move. Until you find a corner. A shadow. A wall. And it happens. Right there. Against stone. Down your leg. Inside your boot. You freeze. Not from cold. From horror. You look around. Did anyone see? Is anyone watching? The corridor's empty. But shame doesn't need witnesses. It grows on its own. Spreads fast. Hot. Relentless. You strip behind the barrels. Wipe yourself with straw. With leaves. With your own tunic. Anything. Everything. You wrap a rag around your waist. Pray no one notices. They always notice. Back in the kitchen, Bran glances up. Then back down. The cook doesn't speak, but she steps slightly away, and someone coughs into their sleeve too loud, too forced, like they're trying to drown out the smell. You pretend not to hear. You try to work. Your hands shake. Your knees wobble. You drop a ladle. It clatters on the floor. No one picks it up. Not even you. You just stare at it, like it betrayed you, too. At mealtime, they seat you near the hearth, the warmest spot, the farthest from the food. You know what that means. Everyone does. You're the sick one, the untouchable. No one speaks to you directly. They talk around you, over you, through you. Pass the salt. What's in the stew? Who cleaned the trench today? Never your name, just your absence. After the meal, you step outside. The night air bites. You welcome it. Cold doesn't judge. It just exists. You walk to the back wall, where the scraps are dumped, where no one follows. You sit in the dirt and wait for what you don't know. Forgiveness? Time? Strength? It doesn't come. A mouse scurries past your foot. You envy it. It doesn't feel shame. It just eats, runs, lives. And when it dies, no one remembers. Bran finds you there. He doesn't speak. He lowers a bucket beside you. Clean cloth, hot water, a sliver of soap. Then he walks away. No words, no looks, just kindness unspoken. You cry, quietly, into your sleeve. Later, you wash, scrub until your skin burns, until your hands bleed. You throw the soiled tunic into the fire. Watch it curl and blacken. Smoke rises. Not thick, not clean, but gone. You sleep on the stone that night, not in your cot, not near the others. You dream of silence, of echoes in hallways, of eyes you can't see, and a voice, yours, maybe whispering, "I'm still here." In the morning, someone has left you bread and a boiled egg wrapped in cloth. You eat slowly, gratefully. You don't ask who left it, because asking makes it real, and some shames are easier to bear in silence. When you walk back into the hall, no one speaks, but they make room. Not much, just enough. You're still the ghost, but ghosts are part of the castle too. You move among them, not proud, not forgotten, just allowed. You take it, because that's what survival is. Not triumph, not redemption. Just one more day, breath in, shame out, and the trench still waits. But today, it doesn't win. They said he'd always been there. That's what Bran told you, anyway. He came with the last lord, he muttered, slicing turnips without looking up. Or the one before that. Hard to tell. You'd never seen him before. Not in the halls. Not in the yard. Not even in the trench line. Which, for a castle this size, meant he was either very new or very good at hiding. He didn't speak. Not even when spoken to. Only nodded. Once. Slow. His eyes were pale, not white, not blind, but gray, like ash on wet stone. His hands trembled slightly, as if they belonged to someone else. You first saw him near the West Tower, carrying a pail. No one sent him. No one stopped him. He moved like he belonged. But something about the way his feet never quite landed, as if the ground wasn't sure it wanted to hold him, made your stomach knot. You told the steward. He waved a hand. He works. That's enough. Then he muttered something under his breath. Too soft to catch. But the tone? Familiar. The same one used for old curses and bad omens. You noticed more of him after that. Always just a bit out of place. filling water buckets no one asked for, mending cloaks left unsalvageable, sweeping stone corridors that hadn't been walked in years. He never ate with the rest, never slept in the dormitory. No one saw his cot. No one knew where he went when the fires went out. You tried once to follow him. Curiosity, maybe. Maybe fear. You trailed at a distance, careful not to be seen. He moved quickly, smoothly, like water over polished rock. He headed toward the old chapel, the one the roof collapsed on last winter. You waited outside. He never came out. The next morning, there he was, washing pots, as if nothing had happened. You asked Bran. Again, he's quiet. That's all. Like the wind. But the wind didn't make the others avoid him. The way they gave him space. The way they never said his name, because no one knew it. Or maybe they'd forgotten. You tried once to speak to him. Midday. Near the stables. You offered him bread. He didn't take it. Didn't shake his head. Didn't move. Just looked at you. Those pale eyes. Like mirrors with no reflection. You dropped the bread. Walked away. Ashamed of the chill down your spine. Then, one day, someone asked, "Who cleaned the trench last?" A pause. No one answered. Because no one had been assigned. No one had gone near it in days. Too full. Too foul. Too risky. But it had been cleaned. Fresh earth. The stench weaker. The slime scraped from the stones. Someone suggested the steward did it. He laughed until he coughed. Then said, "I'd rather jump in." You all looked at each other. And then, at once, you all knew. It was him. The pale-eyed man. The one who didn't flinch. Didn't speak. Didn't stop. You didn't ask why. Not out loud. But the question hung in the air like wood smoke. Why would he do it? And worse, what does he want? One night, you saw him again. By the trench. Kneeling. Not dumping anything. Not cleaning. Just kneeling. Head bowed. As if in prayer. As if the filth could listen. Or answer. You stepped back. He didn't look up. You're not sure he ever does. The others began to avoid him completely. They stopped saying he. Just called him it. Not out of cruelty. But protection. Because giving something a name gives it power. And no one wanted to know what power his name might carry. Then came the rats. Hundreds. In the pantry. In the hay. In the steward's bed. Gnawing. Screeching. Tearing through sacks and silk like they were paper. They chewed a boy's ear clean off before anyone could blink. Panic spread. You thought of the man. Of the trench. Of the prayer. He didn't flinch. Didn't react. Just kept moving. Silent. Efficient. Like a shadow with chores. You saw him that night again. Not praying this time. Feeding the trench. Not food. Not waste. Something wrapped in cloth. Tied with a cord. He dropped it into the muck. Watched it sink. Waited. Then nodded. And left. In the morning the rats were gone. Not dead. Just gone. No traps. No poison. No bodies. Just silence. Clean sacks. Still air. No one asked questions. But no one looked him in the eye again, either. You didn't, even when he passed within arm's reach. Even when he whispered not to you. Not at you, but around you. It remembers. You still don't know what he meant. But now, when something vanishes, when the trench looks just a little too clean, When a breeze passes through the stone and carries no smell at all, you remember that servant, the one you didn't recognize, and now wish you never had. It doesn't come every night, only the ones where the wind is still, where the fire burns low, where no one coughs, no one snores. Only then does it slip in. The dream. You're standing in the garderobe, but it isn't broken. It isn't boarded. It's clean, smooth, lit by a soft gray glow that has no source, no torch, no moon, just light, like fog made gentle. The walls are warm. The wood isn't splintered. And the air, it doesn't smell, not even of waste, only of rain, of stone, of something old and safe and wrong. You move toward the seat. You don't want to, but you do. It draws you, softly, like a mother's voice you've never known. Your feet move without sound. The floor doesn't creak. There's no sound at all. No drip. No wind. Not even your own breath. You're not sure you're breathing. You're not sure you need to. You reach the hole. It's wider than you remember. Much wider. A mouth. A throat. Not carved grown. Edges soft. Pulsing. You look down and see not blackness but depth. Colorless and endless. You want to turn away, but you can't. Your knees bend. You crouch. And you listen. At first, nothing. Then, it's time. A whisper. Not male. Not female. Not even a voice. Just the idea of one inside your head, inside your ribs. You fall forward. You don't scream. You fall slowly, gently, like the trench is catching you, holding you. You land, without impact, on earth, or something that pretends to be earth. It smells of moss, and iron, and things that should never have known sunlight. Above you, stone. Below you, breath. All around you, memory. You stand. Your clothes are dry. You're not afraid. That's the worst part. Because fear would mean this is new. But you've been here before, haven't you? The walls pulse. You walk forward, down a tunnel, curved, womb-like. The air hums. Not with voices, with recognition. The tunnel knows you, knows your scent, knows your weight, knows your sins. You see images etched in the walls, not carved, formed, grown. Stories. Too many, too real. People squatting in shadows. Children holding empty bowls. Rats bigger than dogs. Toilets that open like flowers. And always the trench. Sometimes wide. Sometimes narrow. Sometimes with eyes. You don't want to touch the walls, but you do. Because the dream wants you to. Your fingers sink slightly. The wall is warm. It sighs. And you remember the first time you saw someone vanish. The first time you smelled that sweet rot. The first time the trench breathed back. The wall remembers too. You keep walking. There is no end. Only curve after curve. Memory after memory. Until you reach it. A chamber. Round. Perfect. Echoing. In the center, a throne. Made of waste. Not metaphor. Not symbol. Literal filth. But arranged with grace. With art. With reverence. And seated on it. Yourself. But not quite. It's your face, your clothes, your crooked shoulder. But the eyes are gray, like ash on wet stone. You remember those eyes. You've seen them in the mirror, lately. Too often. They smile. You do not. The thing that is you opens its mouth, not to speak, to breathe, and the breath comes out black, like ink, like soot, like truth. It wraps around you, lifts you, pulls you in. You feel your own skin stretch, split, sink, and then you are falling again, back into yourself, back into the cot, back into the stink of wool and mold and night. You sit up, covered in sweat, or water, or both. Your hands shake, but your chest doesn't hurt, because you never screamed. You check the room. The others are asleep, but not peacefully, twitching, whimpering. You wonder if they saw it too. If they remember, you lie back, close your eyes. Try to forget, but you never do. Because the dream, it doesn't fade. Not like dreams should. It waits, right behind your eyes. The next day, you tell Bran, you shouldn't, but you do. He listens, quiet, then says, we all see it eventually. You blink. He adds, it's not a dream. You don't ask what he means, because deep down, you already know. It's a memory, not yours. Not entirely, but part of the place, part of the trench, part of the castle's digestive system. You're not just a servant. You're a cell. That night, you don't sleep. You don't dare. You stay by the fire, watch the flames flicker. You hear the wind against the garderobe door, soft, rhythmic, almost polite. You don't open it. You don't need to, because you already know what waits behind it. You try to eat the next day. Nothing tastes right. Meat is too rich, bread too bitter. Only water soothes you, and even that carries a scent you never noticed before. Ash. When the steward mentions dreams, he does so without looking at anyone, just mutters. If it speaks to you, don't answer. You nod. So does everyone else. Even the ones who claim they don't dream, especially them, because denial is easier than listening. That evening it rains again. The trench floods. You hear it through the walls. A heartbeat. A growl. A calling. Someone stirs in their sleep. You pray it's not you, but in your chest, you already know. You'll return. Tonight. Tomorrow. Next week. Because the dream isn't done with you. And you? You're not done with the dream. Not yet. Not ever. It begins on your name day, but no one says why. They don't wish you joy. They don't sing. They don't offer bread or wine or even a nod. Just silence. Heavy. Expectant. Like the hush before a storm. You ask Bran what's wrong. He stares at your hands and mutters, "You've been here long enough now." You ask what that means. He doesn't answer. He doesn't have to. Because in castles like this, time is its own curse. At supper, your bowl is fuller than usual. Meat, not gruel. Thicker ale. A crust of real bread. At first, you feel lucky, special, but no one else is eating. They just watch, quiet, their eyes heavy with pity. Your stomach turns before the food even touches your lips, but you eat anyway, because tradition doesn't wait, and neither does the trench. After the meal, they hand you a candle, unlit. Black. Short. Used, maybe, by others before you. Bran lights it without looking you in the eye. He says, "Walk the wall. Alone." You ask why. He says, "Because now it knows your name." You step out into the wind. It bites harder tonight. The moon is a shard in the sky, sharp, distant, disapproving. You carry the candle down the walkway, past the kitchen, past the barracks, past the chapel ruins, until you reach the trench. It's low tonight. The rain hasn't come. The surface is still, too still. You kneel, like you've seen others do. You whisper, "I'm here." The candle flickers. The trench gurgles. And from somewhere deep, far, wrong comes the echo. "I know. You're not the first." You can feel that. The earth around the trench is too smooth, too worn. Knees have pressed here before. Hands have bled here. Voices have cracked here. You wonder how many. You wonder who. You wonder why no one ever speaks of them. Back in the hall, no one asks what happened. You sit by the fire, the candle now snuffed. You hold it still, the wax still warm. Your fingers smell of smoke. And something else. Moss. Rot. Memory. You don't sleep that night. Not really. Just drift. Float. Sink. And hear, faintly, through the stone. Laughter. From the trench. The next morning, Bran gives you gloves. Leather. Thick. Too big. You ask what for. He just says, "You're ready." For what? You already know. You're not told. You're shown. They lead you behind the stable, past the compost pile, to a small hatch in the earth. Wooden. Heavy. Stained. One hinge groans as it opens. Below a ladder, leading down into a space not meant for humans. But here you are, human, barely. You descend. Each rung groans. Each breath thickens. The air shifts from cold to wet, to hot, to old. You reach the bottom. A room, barely. Earth walls. Stone ceiling. One narrow trench that runs through the center. It bubbles, but doesn't move. You stand there, and Bran says, "This is where the first one served." You ask, "First what?" He says, "The ones who chose to stay." You shake your head. "I didn't choose." Bran smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. That's the tradition. They leave you there. For an hour. Or a day. You don't know. There's no light but the single candle in your hand. No sound but the trench's breath. No company but your own. Except you're not alone. Not really. You feel eyes. Behind the walls. Above. Below. Inside. Watching. Measuring. Judging. Something shifts. Not the trench. Not you. The room. The castle. It's subtle, but sudden, like the moment before a scream, or a fall, or a prayer. You feel your name slip from your tongue, whispered, accidental, and the trench replies, not in voice, but in motion, a ripple, a recognition. It knows you now, fully, finally. It's in your breath, your blood. You are now part of the castle, of the system. Not a guest, not a servant. A function. They call you back after a while. The ladder groans as you climb. Your knees ache. Your eyes sting. Your skin smells faintly of salt and old secrets. You ask Bran how often this happens. He says, "Once." You nod, but then he adds, "And then again, every day, until you forget it happened at all." You return to your chores. The pots, the ash, the chamber pots. You do them all, but now they feel different. Not worse, not better, just inevitable. Like breathing, like waste, like gravity. At night, you sleep, but dreams don't come anymore. Just the memory of a trench, a throne, and a smile that might have once been yours. You're changing, not fast, not visibly, but deeply. Your hands know more than you remember learning. Your feet follow paths you didn't know you walked. You begin to speak less, because you understand more. And not all of it deserves words. Bran sees it. He watches you, with a mix of pride and warning, as if to say, "Yes, this is what happens. No, you can't undo it." You want to ask him when it happened to him, but something in his eyes already answered that. A long time ago. So long, even he forgot. You start to clean the trench without being asked. You know the times, the tides, the rhythms. You no longer need gloves. The muck doesn't sting like it used to. Sometimes it even feels warm, like being held. You don't tell anyone that, because not even this place would understand. One day, a new boy arrives. Thin, dirty, afraid. He reminds you of yourself. Before, he asks where the trench is. You point. He thanks you. You smile, but only a little, because you know what he's walking toward, and who he'll be after. If he returns, you begin to light your own candle now, not just on name days, but when the air feels thick, when the night presses, when the trench hums. You kneel, you whisper, you listen, and sometimes it whispers back. You don't always understand the words, but the meaning, you feel it in your gut, in your marrow, in your waist. This is the tradition, not passed down, but pulled in. You didn't choose it, but it chose you. Because someone must feed the castle, not with bread, not with blood, with what's left. And you are now part of that feast. You thought you'd gotten used to it. The rot, the sourness, the filth that clung to skin and hair like guilt. You thought your body had adapted, that your nose had gone dull, that your mind had numbed itself for survival. But some stinks don't sit in the nose. They sit in the soul. And this one? It wakes up. It begins with a whisper. Not sound. Sensation in the air. In your bones. Like something stirring in the trench. Something old. You try to ignore it. Carry water. Stack wood. Scrub the knives. But it follows. A scent that thinks. That chooses. You catch it when no one else does. In the folds of the blanket. In the grain of the table. In the steam from the stew. A rot that's not from food. Not from flesh. But from history. You wash. Twice. 3 times. Ash and vinegar. Scrape your hands raw. You burn your socks. Your shift. Even your hair, when it clings too close to your nose. The stink remains. It's not on you. It's in you. You ask Bran. He sighs and says, "You noticed then." You nod. He doesn't smile. He says, Some do, most don't. That's the mercy. You ask what it is. He shrugs. The castle, maybe. The trench. The remembering. Then he adds, almost to himself, the ones who smell it longest usually end up in the walls. You don't ask what he means, because you're afraid of the answer. You go back to your chores. But now, everything reeks. The floor, the bread, the people, even their breath seems tainted. Not with garlic or onions or ale, but with something deeper, fouler, like they've all been drinking the same ancient sludge and forgot to notice. The wind carries it. Even outside, you walk the wall for fresh air. It follows. You stuff rags in your nose. Rub mint leaves under your lip. Still, it creeps in. Under doors, through cracks, between teeth. You begin to hear it, too. Yes, hear it. A slow, wet drip. In the back of your skull, like a leak in your thoughts. Like the trench is whispering in liquid form. You ask the cook if she smells anything. She stares at you. You all right? You nod. She squints, then sniffs, shrugs. Maybe the lard's turned, but you know better. It's not the lard. It's not the room. It's the castle. You sleep less. The dreams return. Worse now. More vivid. Not just falling. Now it's climbing. Out of the trench. Up through the floors. Into the bedding. The stench moves in your dreams. Crawls. Licks. Wraps around your throat like steam. You wake up gagging. You throw up bile. You feel fine by morning. Except for the smell. You try not to talk about it. Not to mention it. You don't want the others to see your face change when it hits. But they already know. They've seen it before. From the old maid who stopped talking one winter and walked into the swamp. From the boy who scrubbed until his nails fell off, then vanished behind the chapel. From the steward's cousin who burned every rag in the laundry and screamed when the wind blew east. They smelled it, too. And now, so do you. You go to the trench. Late. Alone. Candle unlit. You kneel. It gurgles, not happy, not angry. Present. You whisper. What do you want? And the stench swells. Not around you. Inside you. You cough. Black bile. You cry. Saltless tears. The trench doesn't answer. It never does. Not in words. Only in weather. The next morning the bread has maggots. The well has a film. The pigs won't eat. You don't eat either. Not from fear. From nausea. You're hungry. But the stench spoils everything. Even your thoughts. You begin to wonder if it's punishment. Or a test. Or worse, a gift. Bran finds you scrubbing the stones near the hearth. You've rubbed through to the lime layer. He crouches, takes the brush, sets it aside. You don't speak. He doesn't either. Just rests a hand on your shoulder. Then, softly, it won't leave, not unless you give it someone else. You blink. He nods. That's the part no one tells you. You ask what he means. He says, you've smelled it long enough. Now it wants out. You ask, out? How? He doesn't answer. He stands, walks away. You stay on your knees. For a long time. That night, you don't sleep. You sit by the fire, watching, listening, sniffing. You wonder what it would take. A whisper? A name? A sacrifice? A blame? You feel the trench inside your chest, waiting. warm, hungry. You think of the new boy, the way he smiled when you showed him where the trench was, the way his hands trembled when he first held a chamber pot. He's kind. He's afraid. He's unclaimed. You shake the thought away. Then it returns. Strong, clear. The stench whispers, "Choose." You refuse. It laughs, wetly, inside your ears. You grab your blanket, step into the night. The trench is near, so near. You kneel again. You whisper, "Take me." The trench stirs, then stills, and replies, without sound, "Not yet." You scream, aloud, into the earth. Your voice cracks. No one hears. Or maybe they do, but they won't come, because they've all heard it before, because they know the stink only leaves when it finds another host. You've worn it long enough. Now it seeks a new skin. You stagger back to your cot. You lie down, not to sleep, to rot. You feel it now, growing. Not just in your nose, in your lungs, your marrow, your thoughts. You no longer recognize your scent, or your voice, or your shadow. In the morning, the others avoid you. Even Bran, even the rats. You are the stink now, not surrounded by it, made of it. The boy tries to speak to you. You look at him. He flinches, steps back, says nothing. You smile. Your teeth feel soft. You know what comes next. You've seen it. In dreams. In others. You'll walk. Soon. Out into the trench. Or into the swamp. Or behind the chapel. And you'll leave something behind. A smell. A name. A role. And someone else will inherit it. Because that's the only cure. For a stench that thinks. A smell that remembers. It was never spoken aloud. Not by the steward. Not by Bran. Not even by the old woman who hadn't left her cot in 2 winters. But it lived between the walls. In the cracks. In the flicker of candles that burned too low and too long. It lived in you, even before you named it. You first felt it behind the chapel, where the ground sloped down toward nothing, where moss grew too thick and birds never landed. You were fetching water, the shortcut, the one the others warned against. You told yourself you didn't believe the stories, but your steps slowed anyway, and then you heard it. Not a sound. Not quite. A confession, whispered through soil. They know. You dropped the bucket. Didn't look back. Didn't breathe until the firelight kissed your boots again. You told no one, but the whisper stayed. And it grew bolder. At first, it came only at night. In dreams. Or just before, that half-sleep place where the trench licks your thoughts clean. It told you things. Not commands. Not requests. Just facts. Too true. Too quiet. The stew was human. Bran's fingers rot in his gloves. The rats worship you now. You shook it off. Until the day it was right. The stew was odd. Too sweet. Too tender. You asked the cook what it was. She smiled, blankly. Pork. But there'd been no pigs for 3 weeks, and the butcher's boy hadn't returned. You said nothing, because you already knew, because the whisper had told you, and you didn't deny it. That's when the secret started sticking, clinging to your skin, to your words. You couldn't lie anymore. Not really. Every time you tried to dismiss it, your voice cracked. Your mouth tasted like blood. The trench had made its home in you, and the truth came with it. One night, you saw Bran staring at the wall. Not the fire, not the others. The wall. You asked what he was doing. He said, listening. You waited. Then, softly, it said you hear it too. You wanted to argue, to pretend, to play the part of the innocent again. But you couldn't. The secret wouldn't let you. You nodded. He didn't blink, didn't smile. Just said, then you're ready. Ready for what? You didn't ask. You didn't have to, because that night they brought you to the gatehouse. Not for punishment, not for reward, for understanding. The kind that weighs down the bones. The floor was slick, with moss, with blood, with memory. They lit 3 candles. None of them flickered, even though the wind screamed through the cracks. That's when you knew this wasn't about warmth. It was about ritual. The steward stood across from you, Bran beside him, a third figure hooded between them. The hood smelled of vinegar, of tallow, of burial. The figure stepped forward, handed you a key. Small, rusty, warm. You didn't ask what it opened, because your fingers already knew the shape, already ached for the lock. You were led back down, below the kitchen, past the trench's breath, past the chamber of names, to the door. The one no one ever cleaned, no one touched. Except now, you, the key slid in like it belonged, which of course it did. The door side open. Inside, blackness. Thick, not absence of light, but presence of shadow. Alive, waiting. You stepped in, because to deny the trench now would be like denying your own skin. It wasn't a room. Not really. A space. A womb. A throat. The air tasted like iron and regret. And in the center, a shape. Not man. Not beast. But familiar. Your shape. Your size. Sitting cross-legged. Smiling. With your face. But older. Hungrier. Complete. It raised one hand, pale, open, inviting. You stepped forward, kneeled. It didn't speak, because it didn't need to. The trench whispered for it. Through the stone, through the marrow. You know now, and you did. All of it. The history, the bargains, the digestion. You were never a servant. Not truly. You were an ingredient, a chosen one, because you never denied the secret. And now, you were it. When you came back up, no one asked what you saw. They didn't need to. They saw your eyes, how the gray had crept in, like frost, like fungus, like truth. You took your place by the fire. Sat where Bran once sat. He didn't move, didn't speak, just bowed his head and whispered, "It's done," but it wasn't, because the secret still whispers, louder now, with every breath, with every spoon, with every flush. The trench once more. Not food, not filth, belief. And you? You're the priest now. Because you never denied it, and now you never will. It begins before you wake, not in a dream, in the space between, when your breath pauses and your heart waits to decide if it will beat again. That's where it speaks. The voice, clear, low, old, but familiar, like someone you once buried whispering through the seams of the coffin. Today, just that. No name. No command. no reason, and yet you obey. The morning fire burns cold. The coals are gray, but not dead. You stir them, not because you want warmth, but because the voice expects it. The others watch you, quiet, nervous. You used to be one of them. Now you're something else. They don't know what, and neither do you. You don't eat. Food tastes wrong. Bread is too loud. Ale is too sharp. Your tongue feels coated with ash. You speak little, only when asked. Even then, your answers come from the voice. You don't think, you relay. The trench gurgles behind the wall, constant, patient, like a throat being cleared for something important. You go to it, not to clean, not to pray, to listen. You kneel. It bubbles. Steam rises, and the voice, now clearer, says, "Choose." You don't ask what it means. You know, there's a boy in the kitchens. He hums while he works. Too cheerful, too new. He hasn't heard the trench yet, hasn't felt it. He's whole, untouched. The castle doesn't like that. Neither does the voice. Choose. You nod. You find him fetching onions, smiling. He offers one to you. You take it. Thank him. Ask him to follow you. He does. Without question, because he trusts you, because he doesn't see the gray in your eyes yet, or the silence behind your words. You lead him to the trench. He hesitates. Never been this close. You smile, softly. It's good to know where things go. He nods, laughs nervously. You show him the way the waste flows, where it drops, where it breathes. He leans closer, and then the voice whispers, "Now." You don't push him. You don't need to. He slips, or thinks he does. He reaches out to you. You pull away. His eyes go wide. He falls into the dark, into the trench, not screaming, just surprised, like he tripped on a memory. Then silence, then breath, then nothing. You wait, for guilt, for grief, for anything, but the voice only says, "Thank you," and the warmth that fills your chest is not shame. It's pride, because you were useful, because the system works, because the trench is fed. You return to the fire. You eat now. Everything tastes fine, better, as if the trench cleaned your tongue. The others don't ask where the boy went. They never do. Not out loud. They just eat more carefully. Look at the floor a little longer. Sleep with one eye open, just in case the voice picks them next. You start hearing it more often. In the wind, in the stone, in the water. When someone lies, it hisses. When someone breaks the rules, it growls. When someone doubts, it smiles. You've become its ear. And, more recently, its mouth. Bran nods when you pass. Not with respect. With relief. His time is nearly done. You see it in the way his fingers tremble. In how he forgets things. The trench doesn't like forgetfulness. It wants clarity. It wants purpose. The voice guides you at night. To the cellar. To the attic. To the secret tunnel behind the chapel. There, you find things you never should have found. Bones. Symbols. Names carved into wax and fat. You don't ask why they're there. You only nod and whisper, "What next?" The voice tells you, not in language, but in feeling. A map behind your eyes, a list in your breath. Each name pulses behind your ribs. Their faces glow in the firelight. And the trench waits, open, ready. The boy was only the beginning, the first act, the test. Now comes the pattern. Now comes the rhythm, because the castle is alive, and it's hungry. And you're the mouth that feeds it. You sit by the fire again, Bran beside you, his eyes distant, his voice thin. You lean in. He asks, "Is it louder now?" You nod. Much. He exhales, soft, then says, "It's your turn then." You blink. He's smiling, not with joy, with peace. That night, he walks to the trench himself. No torch, no escort, no sound, just him and the voice. You follow, unseen. He kneels. He whispers something. You'll never know what. Then he leans forward. The trench opens wider than it ever has before, and accepts him. You light a candle, set it on the stone. The wax runs fast, as if the flame is eager to finish its work. You return to the hall. No one speaks of Bran again. They don't need to. He's not gone. He's absorbed. Now the voice is louder, clearer. It speaks not just to you, but through you. In your walk, in your gaze, in your stillness. You are no longer a servant. You are the trench's voice, its tool, its memory. And tomorrow, someone new will start to hear it too, because that's how it spreads. That's how the system survives. And you never questioned it. You only listened. It begins, as it always does, with silence, but not the peaceful kind. This silence hums. It scratches at the underside of your skin. It listens back. You wake not from sleep, but from something deeper, a forgetting, and the first thing you smell is the trench. Not rot, not filth, but memory, old, heavy, yours. You rise without meaning to. The others are still asleep, or pretending. Even now, they fear eye contact, with you, with the truth, with what you carry behind your gaze. You move through the hall like a shadow that remembers being human. Every step brings a name to your lips. Every breath feels borrowed. The trench gave it, and soon it may ask for it back. Outside, the wind has stilled. The moon is full, but it doesn't glow. It stares, as if waiting for you to admit something. You don't, because you already did, long ago, when you whispered your name into the trench and heard it repeated. Hungrily, you pass the chapel. Its stones are warmer now, as if the voices inside have returned to their bodies, as if something beneath has begun to rise. You don't knock, you bow, and the air shifts in recognition. Tonight, you're not summoned. You summon yourself, not to serve, not to clean, not to pray, to witness, to confirm what the voice has been promising. The end, not of time, not of people, of denial. You walk the path to the trench, alone, no candle. The moon is enough. The trench glows faintly, from within, from below. You kneel, you always do. But this time, you speak first. I'm ready. The trench replies in heat, in a curl of steam that smells like old copper and forgotten songs. It doesn't answer with words, because it knows you already understand. You were its pupil. then its vessel. Now, its memory. And what is memory, if not waste we choose to keep? The earth groans. You feel it deep, in the bones of the castle, in the stones of the path, in the corners of the sky. The truth is coming, not to be spoken, but to be birthed. Behind you, the first bell tolls. No one rang it. You don't have bells anymore, but the sound is clear, inside your chest. Like your ribs are remembering a ritual. You walk now, not to the trench, but past it, beyond it, to the gate no one opens, the one sealed with wax and moss, the one from the old story, the one everyone claimed was just metaphor. You press your hand against it. The door exhales and opens. Behind it, not freedom, not heaven, not light, but understanding, raw, wet, endless, a cavern of bones that still twitch, of faces carved into stone, mouths open in eternal whisper, a cathedral of waste, not filth, essence, what the world discards, but the trench keeps. The voice guides you forward. You step onto the altar. Stone, slick, stained. You kneel, as always, and the whisper becomes a chorus. Every servant before you, every forgotten name, every boy who slipped, every girl who vanished, all speaking through one mouth. Yours. This is what they left behind. This is the part they didn't want to keep. You are the lid to the world's jar. You look down, into a pit, bottomless. It breathes, like lungs turned inside out. And the air? It tastes like your past, like your name, mispronounced by the dead. You lean forward, and the voice, now gentle, asks, "Do you still want to leave?" You shake your head, because there is no leaving what you've become, only completing it. You lower yourself into the pit. It's warm, welcoming, not death, not dissolution, but use. You were waste once. Flesh discarded, sweat ignored, shame hidden. But the trench remembered. It gathered, composted you into something holy. You are not disappearing. You are joining. Above, the castle sleeps. But it shifts. A new boy stirs in his cot. His stomach aches. He smells something strange in the night. He doesn't yet know what it means. But soon, he will. He'll carry water. Scrub steps. Hear laughter behind the wall. Smell something that doesn't wash away. He'll kneel. He'll listen. And one day, he'll understand the truth you couldn't escape. That waste isn't the end. It's the beginning. And someone must remember it, carry it, be digested by it. You smile as the trench closes around you, and the castle exhales, relieved, fed, alive, again.